8:30 p.m. in India and 9 p.m. in New Zealand. We'll
It
tell you
sure is.
why. Yeah. So we'll let you know why we're talking about three different time zones. Now, Speaking Minds has been curating events with our speakers from around the world for the longest time, as you know. We are India's largest international speakers bureau. Through these COVID 19 times, we have continued to engage with our clients and with our speakers, and we have brought in thought leaders, motivational speakers, stand up comedians, artists, all on a live streaming platform. Today, I'm joined by Mark Ingles, the world's
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Sorry, there is a bit of a technical glitch, so I'm not able to really hear myself a bit better. But hey, please bear with us. There's Mark Ingles, the world's first double amputee to summit Mount Everest, who was in an ice cave for 13 and a half days a few years ago, many, many years ago.
Many years.
Mark will share his story with us. We have Shazia Mirza, an English stand-up comedian who loves India, who's been to India many, many times. And Shazia has a very interesting story. Shazia has been on an island with Bear Grylls and a few others in isolation. And Shazia has also been in a celebrity reality show called Celebs in Solitary. And she was in solitary confinement for, I'm going to use the word confinement for 5 days in a container. What also brings me back to the old stories that we've heard of Nelson Mandela being imprisoned, and he was in isolation for 18 years. We also know of Anne Frank's story, who was in isolation for 2 years. Now, bringing all this together, I'm very interested in knowing for us and for our audience, what does it mean? What's the impact of this on each one of us? But before we go there, Mark, can you share your story with us, please?
Oh, sure. Well, welcome, everyone. I do have some experience in isolation. When I was 23 years old, on a climb in the Southern Alps of New Zealand, I was trapped in an ice cave due to bad weather. Trapped in an ice cave that was, I don't know, smaller than underneath an office desk. And in there for 13 and a half days, 324 hours. Hardly being able to move, with virtually no food, lost 40% of my body weight. Every second in that ice cave, I had to make decisions on how to survive. And those are the decisions that have put me in good stead. One of the decisions, of course, was, do you get hypothermia or do you get frostbite? Hypothermia will kill you. Frostbite, well, actually, it doesn't. But it did mean I lost both of my legs from just below the knee. A great lesson. And it was really like a gold standard to change. And it was something that I hark back to, even now in isolation, like so many of us are around the world. It's those decisions, those learnings that I've taken from that are just so important.
So, Mark, when you were in that cave, did you think it was going to end in one day, or did you think you'll be rescued soon, or did you not know?
Well, we didn't know. And so there were two of us in the cave, Phil and myself. And every minute we thought, well, if the weather clears, we'll be rescued. And that just continued. It was like this never-ending decisions that you needed to make. And so you had to look forward and say, well, realistically, we need to plan to be here for another few days, for another few days, for another few days. And that happened. That went on for 13 and a half days. Could it have gone on longer? Probably not. We were close to death at the time. And so it's how you make those decisions with that with no surety of future. At least now we actually have some surety of future.
So, in your case, you only had 5 Shrewsbury biscuits, right, to live on. So, having food, having no water, having no, this whole lack of knowing when this will end, did that have an impact on you?
Well, I mean, as many gurus know, you can live for a very long time with no food, but it's very, very difficult to live with no water. And I came out of that with we had less than perhaps a quarter of a cup of water per day for 13 and a half days. It was renal failure that was actually killing us. not the hypothermia or the frostbite or the lack of food. And I promised myself that if I ever get out every morning, I will have a glass of cold water. I am so thankful that I'm still having that glass of cold water, no matter where I am. And it's water is something that hopefully that we will never run out of. Safe water, a lot of people don't have, and
Yeah.
so it's learning how to make water safe is really important. But that's one of the things that harks back to my mind every morning when I get up. I have that glass of cold water.
What a story, Mark, really. I'm just going to move on to Shazia. Shazia, yours is a very, very interesting story. I know that you were booked out, your shows were booked out until March, May, June. I remember some of my friends from last month wanting to attend your shows, and suddenly, one, you are at home, So, one, how you're coping with that, and two, I'd love to know your experience on the island with the team that you had,
Mm.
and your experience on the Celebs in Solidarity show.
Well, there's no stand-up comedy happening now, obviously, because there's no audience. I mean, I've been booked to do a gig in LA next Friday, but I'm doing it online.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm doing it on Zoom, but it's not the same doing it from my bedroom to a screen. You really need an audience. It's really important for stand-up to have a live audience, and
Yeah.
I don't have that. So I don't know when this will happen again, because I was going to do Glastonbury and Latitude and all these festivals where people are gathered, social gathering, and I don't know when that will happen again in the near future. Um, it might be a year,
Wow.
and so it could be the death of live stand-up for a long time. But
We'll
I
talk
did
more about that. Yeah, we'll talk more about that later. But tell me more about your experience on the island and your
with Bear
experience.
Grylls. Well, when Mark was saying there about how important water was, we didn't have any water for 7 days. We had no water, we had no food, no clothes, no mobile phone, no computer, no internet, nothing. We had nothing apart from the clothes we were wearing. And we had to survive for a month.
Can you give us
And
a bit of a background on what the show was about, Shazia?
well, you have to survive. It's a survival show.
And they're
Uh,
off on an island, right?
yeah, we don't know where the island is. We don't know where we are dropped off or anything. And we just have to survive. And not all of us did survive. I did. I survived to the end, which was a month. And the way that we did it, really, the survivors, was it was mind over matter for me. It was about the mind. The mind was more important than the body, because the mind tells the body what to do. The body doesn't tell the mind tells the body. So we kept busy. That was the first thing, is that I woke up every day and I found things to do. I'd never caught any fish in my life, but I started fishing, and I caught all the fish for a whole month. I caught over 100 fish, and I was attacked by a stingray. I was bitten to death by sandflies and mosquitoes. It was horrific, but I caught the fish. That's what I made my mental thing to do every day, was I must get up and I must fish. Some days I got fish, some days I didn't. But I made sure that this was something that I was doing every day to keep busy. Another thing we did was the women in particular, we spoke to each other. We had conversations with each other. The men didn't do this as much. And that's why in the beginning there was 5 men and 5 women. In the end, who survived was 4 women and 2 men. Women are better survivors than men, because women are very good at using the mind over matter. Women are very good at communicating, talking to each other. The men, they wanted to get up every morning and hunt, kill, and sleep. This is all they did for a whole month.
Mark,
And so,
sorry, I'm going to interrupt there. Mark, any comments on that? I can see your face.
Oh, classic. Yeah, absolute classic. And in many ways, you are quite right. I mean, um, a lot of men are like that, but don't tar us all with the same brush, eh? Don't tar
Yeah,
us all with
there
the
was
same brush.
two. There was two that made it to the end. Two men. Um, and
Out of how many, Shazia?
five.
So out of 5 men and 5 women, 2 men made it, and how many women made it?
Four.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's it all.
But Bear Grylls said that this was normal. This was what always happened. That there was always more women survivors than men. But I thought what was interesting when this coronavirus happened, everybody running to the shops to get toilet roll. And I thought this was hilarious because we were on this island with no toilet roll, no food, no water, no clothes, no internet. Like we couldn't even do what we're doing now. There was no internet. And when this coronavirus happened, I was watching it and I was thinking, of all the things in the world you need to survive, and you're running for toilet roll, you're stocking up on toilet roll. I thought, this is a first world problem
It is.
because nobody in the Middle East uses toilet roll. Nobody is running for this thing. And I just thought, what, that was such a weird thing because, you know, if you're not going to be eating that much, you're not going to need that much toilet roll.
I mean, the thing is that most people didn't even think about that. What they saw was that somebody in the first place started buying some toilet rolls, and then everyone else thought, well, if they're buying them, we're going to run out, and so we need to buy them as well. And it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it could have easily have been something else, but in this case, it just happened to be toilet rolls, you know. And as someone said, you know, in 20 years' time, you know, they're just lucky that the toilet rolls don't have a use-by date on them.
Shazia, I have a question for you on this. Now, how do you compare your
But
experience?
this herd this herd mentality is what got us into trouble in the first place.
Yep.
You know, following the crowd, listening to look at what everybody else is doing. Let's jump on the bandwagon and do what they're doing. This is what got us into problems in the first place. Brexit, coronavirus, everybody listening to the wrong information. When we were on the island, we didn't have the privilege to do that.
Yeah, sure.
We just had to do whatever to survive. And that was getting food and supporting each other.
Amazing. Shazia, on that, how do you compare that experience on the island to the experience you had on the reality show, The Celebs in Solitude, where you chose to be in a container
Yeah,
for 5 days without anything, right? With basics. So just tell us
yeah.
a bit of
Well,
that, about that, and then share the experience.
we had no, that was different because there was no natural light. So at least we can go out of the house here once a day for an hour, exercise. When I was in solitary confinement, it was like a prison cell. Like people on death row are in solitary. It was like that. So there was no natural light. There was no air. It was, I was locked in a metal container. And the food that I had was in packets. So I had to make it myself. I didn't speak to anybody. And there was no contact with the outside world. So I was on my own. So that very much is about the mind because I don't have anybody to talk to. I didn't have any music, nothing. So what I did was I made sure I exercised every day in my container. I did yoga and meditation every day in the container. I also woke up every morning and I made a plan of things to do for the day, what I was going to write about. So I wrote my book, I wrote a sitcom, I wrote stand-up material, and I kind of wrote a diary of the things that I was thinking. And it's funny, when you're in solitary like that, you regress and you think a lot about the past, and you think a lot about your childhood, and you think about things that are not in the immediate, but you think about things that happened 20 years ago, 30 years ago, because you only have your mind to think about things. And that can be very depressing. and you have to keep upbeat about this. I did a lot of meditation and yoga to help me, and I wrote a lot.
So Mark, you were in a similar situation, 13 and a half days in an ice cave with just one other person. So what were the tools you used?
Oh, it was very much exactly as stated. It's about looking at what you can change right now. It's about making the small decisions and making them decisively and doing it. And it's exactly the same now. It's you can't be worrying about the things that you can't change, but you need to be focusing on the things that you can change. In that ice cave, it was like that. We had two people, you know, Phil and I could bounce ideas off each other. And other times of my life, it's just been myself. Isolation has been a critical element of what I've done. In the climb of Choi Yu in 2004, I spent 9 days at 6,500 meters in a tent by myself because I didn't want to have to go back down. And that was very much doing the diary, very much concentrating on the small decisions that I need to make. And these things have happened often in my life. And so much of it is around fix those small things and then use the expanse of your mind, the freedom that you have to create new thoughts.
Brilliant, brilliant things for us all to remember and to use in our day-to-day lives, Mark. Mark, so you think that experience that you had in the ice cave, did that help you cope with what's happening right now? Or have
Oh,
you always been that person?
oh, absolutely. For me, it was the gold standard of so many different things. Uh, it was a very difficult time that I only just barely survived. Everything else is easier. And but you can think back and what would I have done different? What in this situation right now? What are the things that I can do? I don't want to be in 2 years' time looking back, going, I could have done that different.
Sure.
Learn the lessons. You know, as a motivational speaker, no, you know, every job from now till Christmas time is gone, and I would suggest through into 2021, we have to find a new way of earning a living, a new way of presenting what we want to do. I want people to learn the lessons that I've learned, and so it's finding a new way of doing that.
You know what is brilliant about you, Mark, that we've already been in contact with clients and clients are reaching out for your story because they know your story of, being in the ice cave, of how you fought it all, right? And today you're sitting here and you can still share your story no matter where you are, from New Zealand, from wherever you are in your home. It doesn't matter. The clients are reaching out. So thank you for sharing that story and the wonderful lessons that you're sharing with us. Shazia, coming back to you, what do you think has helped you in this current environment? You as your personality, your attitude, you being a woman, or just the fact that you've experienced different things in life?
Um, I think because I've been in two types of different solitary situations. One is in the jungle, where I was with other people, but I didn't know any of them. But it was about survival. And then the other one about being in total solitary confinement. I know how to make use of my time. It's very easy to not be motivated in this time. People who are very used to being with other people all the time, they're going to find this difficult. But actually, this is a gift. There's so much you can do by yourself. There's so much you can create. There's so much to do, even if it's basic stuff like, fixing the toilet, painting your house. I mean, there is so much to do. It's so easy to say, "Oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed by this. I don't know what to do." You can so easily waste this time, but you can do work on yourself. You can meditate. You can do yoga. You can keep a diary of this. You can write. You can be creative. Creativity is very therapeutic. I mean, I know it's part of my job to be a writer and a comedian, but to write about this, to watch lots of movies that you feel that you could have watched, loads of books you wanted to read that you haven't read. There's so much to do if you want to do it. But it's also so easy to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening, and not do anything.
Yeah.
Um, it's very valuable time that you could be used to be creating stuff. So when the world does start working again, you're ready for it. You're ready to contribute. You're ready to give stuff, and you're ready to tell your experience about what happened while you were in solitary.
You know, Shazia, the common thing that I used to say, because I am a workaholic, as we all know, 20 hours, 22 hours is what I would put into my work. I didn't have time for anybody, my family, my friends. There's a long list of people that I promised to meet. I never met. Not that I can meet them now, but at least I can hang out with them online. You know, I have time for them. And that's one thing that I would say, that I couldn't create new things because I didn't have the mental mind space. I never had the time to just sit and think and say, okay, this is a great idea, let me expand on that idea. This has given me that opportunity to think, to allow myself to create new opportunities, not just for us, not just for speaking minds, which is very important, which means speaking minds will look after the talent that we manage, right? But also for myself, for my family. I think it's an amazing time to go through. Now, how
Yeah,
long it will last, we don't know. You've been following stories about India, I'm assuming, all of us,
yeah,
the way the world is connected.
Very much so.
So there's one thing, Shazia, that I want to talk to you about, is that in your article in The Guardian about the island, being on the island with Bear Grylls, you mentioned that survival doesn't discriminate. And now this has been written long time ago. What a fascinating article to read. Can you just share a little bit more about that?
well, I wrote that for The Guardian in November last year, so just about 6 months ago. And I said that, when we were on the island, I was with people I didn't know, never met them before. They'd never met me. And we were in a very enclosed space, 10 of us, for a month. Well, some of us didn't make it, but it was very difficult. And, especially when you're hungry and you don't have anything. You know, and so I knew there were people that didn't like me, and there were people that I didn't like, because we all felt that, you're not pulling your weight. I'm doing all the work, you're not doing this. So we had feelings of animosity towards each other. But one thing we didn't do was we didn't argue between us. I didn't, there was people I didn't like, and there were people that didn't like me, but none of us argued with each other. And we just kept our hatred, any feelings that we had towards each other, we kept it to ourselves. And we just got on with the work. And when we came off the island, we forgot why we hated each other. We forgot why we were angry towards each other. And
Amazing.
we just got on with each other, and we forgot. And what I was saying in the article is that sometimes keep your hatred to yourself. Because in the end, when you come out of the situation that you're in, you will forget why you hated in the first place. And you realize it's just the circumstances under which we are under that causes us to behave that way. But once we came off the island, we're really close friends. We have a WhatsApp group. We get on with each other. We talk about our experience all the time. And I related this to Brexit, and the Archbishop of Canterbury saying, there was a time when we kept our hatred to ourselves. And as a result of that, we were kind of faking it till we made it. We were kind of getting on with each other. And then Brexit happened, and he said, I realized then that now it was out of the bag. We know that everybody hates each other, and now there's no going back, because we know that everyone hates each other. And he said, sometimes just keep your hatred to yourselves and fake it till you make it, and you will forget all the disagreements that we have between each other. And so when I wrote that article, I said that, when you are starving to death on the island, when you have no food, no water, no clothes, you don't know how you're going to survive. It doesn't matter what race, religion, color, gender you are. On that island, there was everybody, but it never came into it. I never ever saw people's color or gender. We just saw it as we are 10 people trying to survive. And I would say that the time that we live in now, it's the same thing, is that it doesn't matter really. Survival has no color or race or religion or
Such a
gender.
simple message, isn't it, Shazia? It's such a simple message. It's something that should be part of us anyway. But for some reason, we seem to have forgotten over the years, over the generations, and somehow the universe is reminding us of the simplicity. All the things that you both have said today, just making sure that you keep busy. Every morning, do what you have to do. You talk about hope. You talk about making sure that you exercise, meditate, enhance your creativity. You talk about each other in the best way possible, that you're not thinking about things that are about discriminating race. I mean, where is that anyway? The question to you, Mark, I know you're a huge fan of India and India loves you as well. So please tell me if you've read news reports about the whole migrant exodus or how India is coping with this right now, although it's very early stages there. So what's your message to India?
I have a huge concern for India, for so many of the people there. The lack of infrastructure for so many of them is going to be an incredible challenge, and my heart goes out to them. The whole concept of isolation, the whole concept of distancing, it just isn't going to happen. But one of the things that I do know is that our biggest lessons in life come from the most difficult times. It's just sometimes it's a bit hard to see them. We should be learning from the past and making sure that as these lessons are rising to the surface now, that we grab hold of them and we make the most of what we've got. It's about critical decision making. Just the scale. Most people just do not understand the scale of Mumbai, of Delhi, of all of the major cities, let alone the rural areas. It's my heart goes out to them. I hope the heat in India is a real factor in minimising the transmission of COVID-19. I hope it is.
Mark, you're very, fortunate to have a prime minister like Jacinta Ardern, right, who put measures in place very quickly. And how do you compare that to what is happening, without being too political, what's happening in the UK? And we've seen 3,600 deaths in the UK as of last night. We don't know the count as of today. This is as of last night. So what do you see? How do you see that in comparison to UK? And we're all privileged. We're all here, very privileged, developed countries.
Well, I mean, the UK went down a line that sounded good at the start, the whole concept of herd immunity. But COVID-19 doesn't play by the rules, and that's what you are now finding out. And so the Jacinda took fantastic advice. Her whole team, it's when this first happened, I thought there's an election coming in September. You're never going to get re-elected, having to deal with this. But the fantastic way in which her and her team have dealt with it, I would say, is if you don't re-elect her, then it's like why not? Everyone's doing a fantastic job. They are taking upon themselves great advice, but they're also taking upon themselves the criticism and answering it as well. We're in a really privileged position. It's hurting, for so many people, and it's going to hurt for years to come. But there won't be the deaths.
Shazia, I'm going to talk to you about Pakistan, about where your family originally comes from. So I hope your family in Birmingham is safe, your parents are safe and looking after themselves. And do you have any view about what's happening in Pakistan right now and how they are coping with this? Because we're hearing all the stories about India, but not really getting news about Pakistan.
Well, obviously, I've seen on the news that people are being beaten in the streets in India to get off the street. But as we know, most of the people live on the street. So I don't know where they are meant to go. In Pakistan, it's around about the same kind of thing. I know that they're not letting any people into the country who have not been tested for COVID-19. The thing is, in Pakistan, they have many kind of very poor country, a lot of social problems. And for a lot of people, they already live on the street. There's nowhere for them to go. There's a lot of women there in marriages that they don't want to be in marriages, and they are facing domestic violence in very small, environments, one-bedroom flats, things like that. Nowhere for them to go. They just have to put up with this. I mean, they have a lot more social problems, say, that we have in England. You know, there's a lot of help here, there's a lot of aid, there's a lot of charities, there's a lot of information. They don't necessarily have that in Pakistan. And that's unfortunate, especially for women and children.
Right, right. It's really sad. I mean, we've been hearing so many stories about things that are happening in less privileged countries, right? Less underdeveloped countries.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just going to end this very shortly, guys. Thank you very much. I've learned so much today, and I hope our audience who's listening in have learned a lot. There are fantastic tips you have given. I don't want to repeat those tips because I think those are tips, those are experiences that you've shared that we need to learn from. Couple of things before we go. Is there one key message that you can give to people who are listening to this? Mark?
Oh, it's make the most of every day. Is just if you're in isolation, that what a fantastic opportunity that you have. It's about make the most of every day. The life is carrying on. Life hasn't stopped. Life is carrying on. Engage in it.
Shazia?
You have food and you have water. You will survive. You will survive. We are very lucky. But, like, you know, make the most of every day, create stuff, learn stuff, read stuff, watch stuff. There is so much to do, and it really is mind over matter.
Brilliant. I have been receiving lots of comments as we've been speaking. There's one interesting comment from Manoj Gursahani, a friend of ours. He says, also best time to observe equanimity. And I think what a fantastic thing to do. We are all one today. The world has brought us, COVID-19 has brought us together, basically. The world is one. And that's what I'm going to leave all of us with. Let's stay positive. Let's keep mind over matter. And here at Speaking Minds, we're very privileged to have people like Mark Inglis, Shazia Mirza, and many others who keep us motivated, who keep us inspired. Please engage us to engage you. And thank you very much. Stay safe, everyone. Stay well. And let's see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.